Craigslist is where ambition and desperation shake hands, and usually, one of them picks the other's pocket. We're not just looking at scams today. We're admiring the artistry behind the 49 most audaciously dumb cons ever pulled on the platform. These are the hustles so stupid, they looped all the way back around to being brilliant. Get ready to question your faith in humanity. 1. Leave it to Portland to take minimalism so seriously it loops back around into pure absurdity. An ad for subscription-free streaming mirrors promised an end to monthly fees with a device offering endless, personalized content. For a one-time payment of $129, you could unlock the ultimate on-demand service. Your own face. People actually fell for it. When the packages arrived, they contained, well, mirrors. Most of them were cracked, which I guess is a fitting metaphor for the buyer's shattered expectations. The seller brilliantly advertised it as featuring 4K self-doubt resolution and an intuitive user interface that never buffers. Sure, you could cancel anytime, but good luck getting a refund for a product that was technically delivered as advertised. 2. Down in San Antonio, a grifter posing as a cowboy coder listed a revolutionary piece of hardware: code injectable spurs. The pitch was pure genius for any tech worker drowning in deadlines. A simple tap of your heel, the ad claimed, and your code would instantly compile. Desperate programmers, likely fueled by caffeine and despair, actually sent this guy their money. What they received was a pair of cheap plastic toy spurs from a dollar store, with a useless USB cable haphazardly superglued to the side. The only thing these spurs injected was chaos, tripping office circuit breakers and bruising toes. By the time they figured it out, the cowboy coder and their money had long ridden off into the digital sunset. 3. For the most devoted Atlanta Braves fans, a Craigslist ad appeared that was simply too good to pass up. Exclusive tickets to a secret rooftop stadium with a perfect view of the game. The package was sweetened with the promise of free nachos, supposedly served by retired baseball legends themselves. Who wouldn't want that? Eager fans paid up and received a printable PDF ticket. The problem was, when they tried to scan it, the barcode registered as a coupon for 10% off roofing shingles. The lesson here is painfully obvious. If a deal sounds too good to be true, it's probably nacho ticket. Sometimes you just have to buy a real seat and your own damn queso. 4. In Miami, where appearance is everything, influencers were the perfect target for a listing advertising invisible swimsuits. This revolutionary product was marketed as the ultimate minimalist beach statement, allowing for a flawless, all-over tan without any of those pesky lines. Buyers eagerly placed their orders, only to receive a completely flat, empty envelope with a note inside that read, "Trust us, it's in there." When outraged customers demanded their money back, the seller became a master of gaslighting, refusing refunds by claiming the buyers must have simply lost or misplaced the transparent product. In the end, they were left with the same old tan lines, but a much lighter bank account. 5. A so-called licensed alpaca whisperer in Boulder, Colorado, began selling monthly subscriptions to a live-streamed yoga class featuring a herd of tranquil llamas. For the low price of $25, subscribers were promised a uniquely serene wellness journey. However, when they logged on for their first session, they weren't greeted by majestic animals in a sun-drenched pasture. Instead, their screens displayed a grainy, pixelated feed from a webcam in a dark basement, showing some guy in a cheap, shedding llama costume humming Enya horribly off-key. The experience was less namaste and more, nah, I must stay the hell away. 6. A breeder in the Midwest caused a frenzy with an ad for miniature Great Danes, claiming they were a special breed that would never weigh more than 12 pounds. To prove it, the listing featured adorable photos of tiny puppies standing next to a ridiculously oversized sneaker for scale. The deposits came flooding in from people who dreamed of a pocket-sized version of the gentle giant. The scam only became clear when buyers showed up to the provided address, which turned out to be the rubble of a recently demolished strip mall. The photos were, of course, terribly photoshopped. The only thing truly miniature about this deal was your chance of ever seeing that deposit again. 7. In one of the most audacious scams imaginable, an Anchorage entrepreneur started selling DIY igloo kits online. The kit promised pre-cut ice blocks, conveniently shipped in insulated crates, ready for you to build your own backyard ice palace. Let that sink in. They were selling ice to people in Alaska. The victims of this scheme received not precision-cut blocks, but styrofoam coolers filled with tap water and a single, condescending pamphlet. The instructions? Step 1, freeze. Step 2, stack. Apparently, while nature provides Alaskans with an endless supply of free ice, irony comes with a hefty price tag. 8. A Vermont eco-startup took the organic food trend to its disgusting conclusion by selling pre-composted salads. Their brilliant marketing angle claimed you could shrink your carbon footprint by eating food that was already, well, digested by nature. Subscribers who thought they were on the cutting edge of green living opened their trendy, sustainable packaging to find leaking plastic bags filled with brown, slimy lettuce. The smell was described as a unique blend of barnyard perfume and deep regret. This wasn't greenwashing, it was literal green mush. Your kitchen garbage can would have had the decency to reject this. 9. In Sacramento, a city full of gardeners with more money than time, a listing appeared for talking tomato stakes. These weren't your average wooden supports. They were smart stakes designed to verbally remind you when to water your plants. What a great idea, right? Buyers received painted dowel rods with a tiny, cheap speaker that would periodically screech, "You forgot again," in a tinny, judgmental voice. The problem was the batteries lasted for about 2 hours before dying, leaving the gardener with silent, useless sticks. The guilt, however, lingered for weeks. In a final act of solidarity, the tomatoes themselves eventually wilted, presumably out of sheer secondhand embarrassment. 10. An upstate New York heritage chef decided to cash in on the speakeasy trend by selling jars of Prohibition-era moonshine starter. The ad promised an authentic 1920s distilling experience. Just add water, wait 3 days, and you'd have liquor potent enough to make a flapper blush. People eager for a taste of history sent their money, only to receive cracked mason jars filled with a sad dusting of dry baker's yeast and a splash of brown food coloring. The only thing that actually fermented was their deep and abiding rage. It turns out the true spirit of Prohibition wasn't the moonshine, but the feeling of being completely ripped off. 11. Renters in Minneapolis stumbled upon listings for guaranteed ghost-free apartments, which included a small, non-refundable surcharge for peace of mind. After moving in, new tenants started noticing all the classic signs of a haunting: lights flickering, unexplained cold spots, and eerie whispers at night. When they complained, the landlord showed up, climbed into the attic, and pulled out a small Bluetooth speaker that had been playing a Spooky Noises playlist on a loop. With a smug grin, he declared, "See? It proves the guarantee works. Those aren't real ghosts." The deposit was never seen again, but the haunting feeling of being an idiot remained. 12. The city of Pittsburgh saw a truly innovative solution to cross-river deliveries: bridge-certified pigeons. For $60 per bird, you could hire a specially trained pigeon to carry small packages across the Allegheny or Monongahela rivers. Buyers would meet a shady character on a street corner, hand over the cash and the package, and watch as their bird soared majestically into the sky. Unfortunately, the pigeons were only trained to do one thing: fly directly back to the scammer's rooftop coop a few blocks away, ready to be sold to the next sucker. It was less of a delivery service and more of an avian-themed recycling program for your money. 13. An inventor in Phoenix began listing solar-powered flashlights with a very specific claim: they work perfectly in total darkness after being fully charged by the sun. It sounded just plausible enough to work. Eager campers and hikers placed their orders, and what arrived was a standard, cheap plastic flashlight with the batteries conspicuously missing. Taped to the side was a small, handwritten sticker that read, "Sun sold separately. I suppose you can't argue with the logic." The product does, in fact, work great once you put batteries in it. But the enlightenment of that realization is probably not very comforting when you're trying to find the zipper on your tent in the pitch dark. 14. Over in Seattle, a city that has perfected the art of paying more for less, a minimalist advertised an invisible bookshelf. For $120, you could own a revolutionary mounting kit that was sleek, unobtrusive, and completely unseen. Buyers received a small padded envelope in the mail containing absolutely nothing but a slip of paper with instructions. It read, "Visualize screws, manifest stability, enjoy the clean aesthetic." Shockingly, one 5-star review praised its zen-like vibe, proving that some people will not only pay for nothing, but they'll thank you for it. 15. For the eternally suffering fans of the Cleveland Browns, one listing offered a glimmer of hope: pre-cursed footballs. The seller claimed these balls were designed to absorb all the team's bad luck and accumulated heartbreak, effectively wiping the slate clean for a fresh start next season. Desperate fans bought them in droves. What they received was a deflated Nerf football, poorly spray-painted brown, stuffed into a cardboard box. The team's curse remained firmly intact, the heartbreak continued, and their season tickets were just as expensive as ever. The only thing the ball successfully absorbed was the buyer's dignity. 16. Tourists in New Orleans fell for a clever ad selling Mardi Gras bead insurance. For a small fee, this policy guaranteed that your precious collection of plastic beads would never get tangled during the parade's chaos. It sounded like a lifesaver for serious bead collectors. The policy that arrived in the mail, however, consisted of a single-use zip tie and a smiley face sticker. When the inevitable legendary knots formed in their bead collections, the company's claims department was, of course, completely unreachable. It seems the motto, "Let the good times roll," also applies to your cash, right out of your wallet. 17. In Los Angeles, a self-proclaimed nutrition guru claimed her backyard chickens were laying eggs preloaded with natural Botox. Her pitch was simple: eat a delicious breakfast and erase your wrinkles at the same time. People were literally meeting this woman in parking lots to buy these miracle eggs. But when they got home and cracked them open, they discovered not a golden yolk, but hollow plastic Easter eggs filled with a squirt of Miracle Whip. Their faces remained unchanged, but their wallets suddenly looked 10 years older. It's the ultimate sunny-side-down experience. 18. A Brooklyn hipster took the artisanal movement to its logical, breathless conclusion by selling jars of artisanal cherry blossom air. For $40 a sniff, you could own a piece of the fleeting Brooklyn spring. Each mason jar arrived carefully taped shut with a stern warning: do not inhale until you are ready to post it on social media. For those curious enough to have it tested, the contents were revealed to be, brace yourselves, ordinary, run-of-the-mill, subway-adjacent New York City atmosphere. You have to admire the sheer audacity of selling people the air they're already breathing. 19. A Boston-based lobster psychologist argued that crustaceans get lonely and anxious in restaurant tanks. His solution? Emotionally supportive rubber bands for their claws. Scented with calming lavender, these bands cost $12 a pair and promise to improve the lobster's mood before its final journey to the dinner plate. A few high-end restaurants actually bought in, but noticed zero change in the lobster's behavior. Diners, however, did notice a sudden spike in menu prices. The only creature whose emotional state genuinely improved was the scammer, relaxing on a pile of claw-gotten gains. 20. A Dallas rodeo tech genius decided to merge the Old West with the new by marketing virtual reality cowboy hats. The ad claimed these hats would project stunning 360-degree prairie sunsets onto the inside of the brim, offering a moment of cowboy zen wherever you were. Shoppers, presumably tired of the concrete jungle, paid $50 for this slice of digital Americana. What they received was a standard, off-the-rack felt hat with a QR code sticker slapped inside. Scanning it led to a low-resolution, endlessly looping YouTube video of tumbleweeds. Saddle up your disappointment, partner, because when you're out $50 for a QR code, reality is already pretty damn virtual. 21. In Omaha, a farmer with a flair for marketing started selling Bluetooth barn door locks. The unique security feature? The locks were supposedly monitored by the cows themselves, providing an unparalleled level of bovine cybersecurity. Buyers who wanted to protect their prize-winning farm equipment received a generic padlock with a fake, non-functioning LED light glued to it. The Bluetooth connectivity was a QR code that linked to a website playing a single, repeating cow moo sound effect. This wasn't just nonsense, it was utter nonsense. The only thing this high-tech system secured was the scammer's payday, as the cash was thoroughly milked from the victims. 22. A seller in New Haven offered Yale dorm room ambiance candles, promising to capture the elusive scent of pure intellectual pursuit. For just $25, you could make your own sad apartment smell like an Ivy League institution. The candles did, in fact, capture a scent. Unfortunately, it was the overwhelming stench of burnt microwave popcorn, stale coffee, and raw, unfiltered anxiety. While you could argue that this was brutally accurate, it was hardly the luxurious, book-lined study aroma people were expecting. It was the perfect product for anyone wanting to feel the stress of finals week without the pesky burden of an education. 23. Hockey fans in Minneapolis thought they'd found the ultimate game day accessory: freeze-proof beer koozies filled with a special Arctic gel. They were guaranteed to keep a beer ice cold through 3 periods and overtime. What arrived in the mail, however, were old knit mittens that had been crudely cut in half and stuffed with the same sugary slushy mix you'd get at a gas station. The first time a fan celebrated a goal with a triumphant fist pump, the koozie exploded, showering the people in the row below with a sticky blue raspberry mess. That's a 5-minute major penalty for roughing up your own credit score. 24. In a vacant St. Louis parking lot, a self-proclaimed medium set up the world's first drive-through seance. For $40, she promised to channel your departed loved ones directly through your car radio. Skeptical but hopeful drivers were told to tune to a specific AM frequency. They were greeted with pre-recorded static, occasionally punctuated by a barely audible, spooky whisper of "Grandma?" The real trick, however, happened while they were distracted. As the driver was trying to communicate with the great beyond, the medium's accomplice was busy stealing their catalytic converter. The ghosts remained silent, but your wallet was definitely spirited away. 25. Vegas gamblers, a demographic known for its sound financial decisions, were an easy mark for lucky air filters. These weren't just any filters, they were supposedly removed from the high roller suites at top casinos. For $80, you could install one in your home and literally inhale the essence of a jackpot. Buyers received rusty, dust-caked HVAC grates that looked like they'd been pulled from a condemned motel. The slot machines remained unimpressed by this magical breeze, and the only thing that got thoroughly filtered was the cash from the buyer's wallet. Next time, just breathe the regular, non-lucky air and keep your chips. 26. A Rhode Island tinkerer listed left-handed coffee mugs, which claimed to use a revolutionary design to spin caffeine molecules counterclockwise, resulting in a smoother, less bitter flavor. It sounds scientific enough if you don't think about it for more than half a second. Curious coffee connoisseurs place their orders, only to receive a box containing an ordinary mug with its right-handed handle crudely snapped off, leaving a jagged ceramic nub. So, do you sip the bitter irony or spill the beans on this ridiculous scam? Either way, that morning grind just got a whole lot grindier for your bank account. 27. On Nashville's Music Row, an ad popped up for vintage vinyl air fresheners. These weren't just any fresheners. They were allegedly pressed from long-lost Johnny Cash acetates. Buyers opened the packaging expecting a piece of music history, but instead found warped, black plastic frisbees that had been soaked in cheap, pine-scented motor oil. The man in black himself would have written a whole album about singing the refund blues. It's a sad day when the only ring of fire you get is the burning sensation of being ripped off. 28. In Fresno, a farm-to-table futurist sold what they called pre-peeled corn on the cob. To make it sound fancy, it was individually wrapped in expensive-looking ecoplastic. People who hate the minor inconvenience of removing a husk actually bought this. When they unsealed the package, they found a soggy, completely kernel-less corn cob. Tucked inside was a tiny note that read, "Kernel rights reserved." You have to admire the audacity. It's a corny joke with a husky price tag and a first ballot entry into the Craigslist Scam Hall of Fame. 29. A Portland crafter was selling guitars supposedly carved from the wood of old shipwrecks, which were haunted by the ghosts of sailors singing sea shanties. For the low price of $900, you could own this spectral instrument. What arrived was a horribly warped piece of plywood that had been misted with ocean-scented Febreze. The haunting was a QR code on the back that linked to a Spotify playlist of sea shanties. Go ahead and strum it. You won't hear ghosts, but you might hear the faint weeping sound of your vanished paycheck. 30. San Diego pet owners were thrilled to find seashell dog whistles that were advertised to summon dolphins for beach playdates with their dogs. Imagine the Instagram photos. What arrived were not mystical ocean instruments, but dollar store conch shells clumsily coated in glitter glue. The dogs, of course, couldn't hear a thing. The dolphins continued their day, completely unimpressed. The local seagulls, however, saw the whole affair as a great distraction to steal everyone's sandwiches. The scammers, meanwhile, were probably laughing all the way to their offshore shell company. 31. Atlanta drivers thought they'd found the ultimate theft deterrent: peach-scented catalytic converters. The ad claimed that thieves have a deep-seated aversion to fruity smells, making your car's undercarriage an unattractive target. What customers received wasn't a car part at all, but a single spray can of peach-scented air freshener and a helpful suggestion to liberally spritz the undercarriage daily. Catalytic converter thefts continued at the exact same rate, but now the getaway trucks leaving the scene of the crime smelled like a delightful summer picnic. 32. In Salt Lake City, a self-proclaimed mountain monk began selling snowflake cloning kits, allowing you to capture and replicate the beauty of winter for years to come. For $50, you got a small box containing a cheap plastic magnifying glass, a vial of craft store glitter, and a set of instructions that simply said, "Believe hard." The cloning success rate was, unsurprisingly, 0%. The crafting mess, however, was at blizzard-level proportions. The magical memories of this purchase melted away even faster than the buyer's PayPal balance. 33. A Phoenix-based pet psychic posted a can't-miss offer. For just $299 in Target gift cards, she could telepathically beam your lost cat back home. One desperate owner scratched off the codes on 12 different gift cards, sent them over, and waited patiently by the window. To absolutely no one's surprise, there was no magical feline teleportation event. The Craigslist ad vanished from the site faster than a cat chasing a laser pointer dot. Do you still believe in quantum kitty delivery, or just the universal constant of getting scammed? 34. In the heart of Silicon Valley, a crypto therapist offered Zoom sessions to help your Bitcoin reach its full emotional potential. For $200 an hour, this guru would guide your digital assets through their emotional blockages. Clients who paid for a session were treated to a pre-recorded meditation track that calmly instructed them to visualize the blockchain hugging itself. In the end, their cryptocurrency portfolio was just as sad as before, but now their wallet was significantly thinner. Maybe it's better to just hodl onto your sanity instead of this snake oil. 35. In Boston, a self-proclaimed Harvard dropout decided to share his almost education with the world by selling unfinished diplomas. For a modest fee, you could purchase a blank parchment and DIY your way to an Ivy League destiny. The parchment, however, was just a sheet of paper from a brown grocery bag, carefully ironed flat, with authentic-looking coffee stains already included for that all-nighter aesthetic. Sure, higher education is expensive, but paying real money for a piece of trash paper is a different kind of lesson. That elective is called Wallet 101, and the final exam is realizing you've just been scammed. Enrollment is now closed, but the scammer's bank account remains wide open. 36. a Kansas City. BBQ historian began selling jars of pre-smoked air, allegedly captured at legendary cook-offs. The promise was that a single whiff of this potent atmosphere released over your grill would instantly improve any cut of meat. Barbecue aficionados, always searching for an edge, actually bought this. They opened their jars, took a deep breath, and inhaled nothing. Just the stale, ambient air of their own backyard, faintly scented with the cheap liquid smoke the scammer had misted inside. Their burgers remained depressingly average, but their bank accounts were charred well done. 37. Down in Austin, a live music mixologist started selling barbecue-flavored vape juice, which was advertised as the perfect sensory pairing for a slow-cooked brisket. Vapers eager to combine their two favorite hobbies were met with a harsh reality. The bottles smelled less like barbecue and more like a chemical fire at a sugar factory. When used, the viscous liquid instantly clogged their expensive vape rigs. The flavor profile was best described as licking an ashtray in the back of a food truck. Yeehaw, taste buds! Your next stop isn't a music festival. It's a long and painful trip to the dentist. 38. Colorado hikers were an easy target for a listing advertising mountain lion repellent bells. These weren't just any bells. They were supposedly tuned to a specific ultrasonic frequency that predators find unbearable. What arrived were ordinary dollar store jingle bells, crudely spray-painted camouflage green. When wildlife experts were consulted, they confirmed that not only do the bells fail to repel mountain lions, but the jingling sound actively helps the predators locate their next meal. The only thing this product successfully repelled was the buyer's common sense. 39. In Fresno, a so-called Hollywood casting director posted an ad promising background roles in the next big Marvel movie. All you had to do was send in a refundable $150 deposit for your cape fitting. Hopeful extras mailed in their cash, practiced their most heroic poses in the mirror, and waited for the call. The call never came. There was no movie, no cape, and certainly no refund. The only superpower these aspiring actors gained was the ability to make their own money invisible. 40. Minneapolis cyclists, tired of flats, jumped at a chance to buy Eternal Air Bike tires, which were supposedly filled with a special, non-compressible gas developed by NASA. When the packages arrived, they didn't contain high-tech tires, but rather inflatable swimming pool floaties that were meant to be zip-tied to the rims. The very first pothole a cyclist hit made a sound like a champagne cork popping on New Year's Eve. I guess puncture protection and basic functionality are sold separately. You'd be better off just learning to pedal faster than your own disappointment. 41. Bargain hunters in Detroit clicked on a listing for vintage 1990s Wi-Fi routers, marketed as the perfect nostalgic accessory for a Y2K-themed party. The pictures looked authentic enough, but the box that arrived didn't contain any electronics. Instead, it held a solid block of beige painted wood with a blurry, printed-out Netscape logo glued to the front. There were no blinking lights, no ports, no nothing. A little nostalgia is fine, but paying modern broadband prices for a piece of plywood? Your actual modem should be deeply offended. 42. San Diego surfers ordered shark-repellent surf wax, which supposedly emitted a secret frequency predators hate. Instead of an empty tin, what arrived was a bar of regular wax with a tiny, useless tuning fork embedded in it. The instructions, printed on a soggy piece of paper, advised surfers to strike the fork against their board before paddling out and hum the resulting anti-shark frequency for 30 seconds. The only thing this repelled was any lingering respect from fellow surfers on the beach. Remember, courage is cool, but common sense floats better. 43. A Boise-based potato futurist listed Wi-Fi-enabled spuds that, when baked to a specific temperature, could supposedly broadcast a small-range internet hotspot. Tech-savvy potato lovers got their hands on these, only to discover they were ordinary russet potatoes with a QR code singed onto the skin. When scanned, the code didn't connect to a network. It just led to a Rickroll video on YouTube. The connection speed was 0 megabits per second, but the comedy latency was immediate. Houston, we have a potato. 44. Down in Mobile, Alabama, an ad promoted swamp-grown avocados, which were supposedly twice as creamy thanks to being grown in alligator-fertilized soil. Curious foodies received lumpy, unnaturally green softballs that turned black overnight and started oozing a substance that looked like a prop from a horror movie. When they complained, the seller advised them to just scrape off the natural patina. Was it a culinary adventure or a biology experiment gone terribly wrong? Either way, your guacamole budget just got gator rolled. 45. Seattle gamers, always looking for a competitive edge, purchased espresso-infused controller grips that promised to heighten their reflexes through caffeine absorption. The packages that arrived contained a pair of sticky, brown rubber bands that smelled faintly of a day-old coffee spill. Their reflexes remained exactly the same, but now their hands were sticky. The only high score they achieved was in the category of caffeine-related disappointment. Maybe just practice the game instead of trying to caffeinate your thumbs. 46. An Alabama farmer listed pre-spoiled milk online, targeting bakers who wanted to make authentic buttermilk biscuits without the wait. The gallons arrived chunky, lukewarm, and with a label that read, "Artisan acidity varies. No refunds will be issued." This wasn't cultured dairy. It was a full-blown culture shock. You have to admire the audacity of selling something that is, by definition, garbage. It's a powerful reminder to cheddar your expectations before you buy. 47. Denver snowboarders were an easy mark for gravity-reduced snowboards, which claimed to use NASA-grade anti-weight technology for bigger air and smoother landings. What they received were flimsy plywood boards with stars spray-painted on them. To add insult to injury, the seller had hidden small ankle weights inside the bindings, making the boards significantly heavier than normal. You weren't catching more air, you were just getting a better workout. The only thing that was truly gravity-reduced was the weight of your wallet. 48. In New Orleans, a bayou botanist was selling self-boiling crawfish pots that were allegedly activated by singing traditional Cajun chants. Hungry and intrigued buyers received a dented stock pot in the mail, along with a lyric sheet for the song Jambalaya. The heat source, of course, was not included. They ended up sitting around a pot of cold water, singing to their uncooked crawfish and creating a sad, audible gumbo of pure disappointment. 49. And finally, a Brooklyn subway archaeologist was selling limited edition Metro dust fossils. These weren't just any clumps of dirt. They were layers of dust from the subway system, allegedly containing particles from every decade since 1904, all encased in clear resin. For $20, you could own a piece of New York history. Buyers received a small cube of resin containing what was very clearly a clump of dryer lint. But hey, at least now you have a conversation starter for your mantelpiece. A fascinating story about human gullibility. So, 49 times people prove that common sense isn't always so common. But the internet is a bottomless pit of creative idiocy, and our list has to end somewhere. Now it's your turn. Write us point number 50 in the comments with the wildest or dumbest scam you've ever heard of. If this financial cautionary tale entertained you, prove your intelligence is still intact by hitting that subscribe button.